So, who's ready to see the 1979 original movie get retread for the umpteenth time? That's a little unfair. There's more to it going on than that. But Alien Earth, Episode 5. This, I know I was snarky with the opening, but this is actually pretty interesting because this is precisely what I did not want from this show, but I also don't mind that they did it, and I appreciate that they did it the way that they did because I have come into this show mainly on faith for Noah Hawley, the showrunner, and I did not have much interest in just retreading the exact same ideas that have been getting, recycled endlessly, basically from Alien 3 onward. There have been the occasional injections of new ideas. They usually haven't been picked up on, and we go back to the default again and again and again. And even when it's done well, I'm kind of tired of it. This is kind of that. But here's what I appreciate about the thought that went into not only the depiction of it and some of the new additions to the formula, but more importantly, when they aired this episode. Because chronologically, the vast majority of the events in this are basically the really quick prologue at the start of episode 1. This episode as a whole could very easily have been episode 1. And I'm so glad it wasn't. The fact that this comes later and is backfill, specifically, around the creatures, the events that happen on the ship, but we could kind of guess at the general shape of events that happen on the ship, but also a fair amount of backfill for Marorrow in specific. This goes down so much better than if they just started here. Because if this had been episode 1, I would have come into it going, okay, so nearly all, if not all, these people are going to die, so why should I even bother getting invested? I guess I'll just watch to see how they have them all die, I suppose. But I was way more engaged than that because I know how it ends. I know that they're nearly all going to die and that Marorrow's going to survive. But the thing was, since in episode 1 we jumped to that ending of Marorrow in the room with the mother computer and seeming very detached, in a way that was kind of reminiscent of someone like Ash from the first film. And while I'm not going to say I automatically assumed, it does kind of incline you to think, okay, he let them out. He caused this entire thing. That's why he's so uncaring and so cold and so calculated about all this. And even if I hadn't assumed that he was specifically at fault, I had kind of assumed that, like Ash, he was pretty much always, a problem. He was making things worse, not trying to fix them. So it's interesting to go back and get more contextualization on that. Now, while it is true that he is completely ruthless and absolutely devoted to his core mission of getting the cargo back to Earth and the crew is expendable, that doesn't mean he's chomping at the bit to expend them. He does try to contain the problem. Now, he does it in a very detached manner. He has no real connection with any of these people. He hasn't let himself have that. But it's really interesting to see that there is more to him than just the ruthlessness, which is always present, for sure. But it was interesting to get those extra layers and that depth. And the stuff about the backstory with his daughter is the kind of thing that normally I might roll my eyes at a little bit, but it does give just the right amount of context for why he is latching on to this mission so hard. What the hell else does he have? He has his mission objective, and that's kind of it. So, yeah, he's extra about it. So, yeah. And I don't even begrudge them making this episode, even though this is basically the exact kind of thing I was like, I don't want the show to be this. But the thing is, the show isn't this. An episode of the show is this. And I'm okay with that, especially because I suspect there are people who were more into the idea of just, seeing Xenomorph Rampage and, the violence and the tension, all of which is done well here. But, who wanted that. The people who liked Alien Romulus more than me, basically. Whereas I was way more interested in all the other ideas this thing is doing. But this is basically throwing a bone to the people who would have really felt kind of a hole in the experience if we didn't get facehugger to chestburster to xenomorph, and people on the ship get steadily picked off. I think there are definitely people who would have felt like, yeah, but like that's what Alien is to me. And I don't think it's an unreasonable thing to basically give that audience what they want, especially when you're thoughtful enough not to lead with that as your opening episode, which not only would have bored me for what I'm here for, but probably would have been misleading for that audience, because it's like, well, okay, but you didn't keep doing that. Now it's this cerebral, what is a person thing. You teased me with the alien stuff. No, now instead, the alien stuff is a mid-season reward. Like, okay, those of you who have stuck with us, who are more into the carnage, here's the carnage. And we're going to do it pretty well also. Like, not better than the best of the movies. Absolutely not. But pretty good. It holds up for sure. I think I really adore the way Noah Hawley approaches television in general. And I don't know if what I'm describing is the actual thought process. You know, if they were actually thinking like, okay, we need to throw a bone for these kinds of fans. We'll do it midway through. Like, I don't know if that's the actual thought process, but it's what it feels like it is. And I love it. I love it. I love it a lot. So while this episode in and of itself is not like one of the standouts for the season for me, just because it's a lot of stuff I've seen before, I still feel like there was a lot of thought that went into it, what it's doing, where it lands in the season. And yeah, this whole season's been really well thought out. I'm really appreciating this. And then, of course, there are the little things that are additions, because, of course, the facehuggers and the xenomorph are not the only thing we are dealing with. It kind of, even with those things, it kind of does a couple of things that are worth doing, because like you think back to that very first Alien when they tried to cut the face hugger off of John Hurt. John Hurt's the actor. I was trying to think of the character name when they were trying to cut it off John Hurt's face, and they got that little bit of acid. Well, they tried cutting very delicately on one of the fingers, around the head. What if they'd gone right for the tail? Well, then the acid just would have gone straight into the dude's neck. Oh, look, that's just what happened. Oh dear. So, like, that's an interesting extrapolation of stuff we've seen before. But we also get more of the other creatures, which are unsettlingly intelligent. But then the show does another thing that makes that even more interesting. Because there's a part of me that worries about the amount of intelligence and planning and forethought some of these things have. Like, I'm thinking about the little megaticks, for lack of a better way to put it. Like, it is able to futz around with mechanics and get itself out. And then it doesn't do what you'd expect an animal to do, which is to immediately latch on to its prey. Instead, it does a sneaky thing and tries to hide. And the eyeball's like watching it. And the eyeball like has this whole thing of the way it breaks out. Like there's an amount of forethought and tactics that initially made me a little bit nervous. I'm like, are they making these things too smart? And like, that's a delicate balance to hit. But I think what helped is in the back end, when we see Shmuel, the engineer, has been taken over by the eyeball thing, and it attacks the xenomorph. And which also sort of brings in that context of why that eye was like tapping. It didn't want the tick things to get her. It probably wanted her, but like these things aren't cooperating. And that is a wrinkle that makes the stronger use of tactics more acceptable to me. Now, like, let's be clear, the xenomorphs are not mindless animals. They have understandings and they show tactics. We've seen that in most of these movies, or at least most of the good ones. At some point or other, it is established these things are smarter than, say, a rabid wolf. This isn't just a mindless creature. It can think, but this is still starting to get into a level of tactics and planning that makes me nervous, because then it makes them seem a little bit too much like they think the way we do, which makes them more comprehensible and to me less interesting. But if you're going to up the intelligence, the natural question is, okay, are all these things working in coordination? No, they're working against each other, which does make sense. Because no matter how, what they were engineered to do, that's pretty much canon at this point, that they are not a naturally occurring organism. I assume none of this stuff is. But if they are that intelligent, the natural thing is, oh, okay, well, they're working together. No. Because no matter how well they're engineered, they are still survival driven and spread their own species driven. And if there is a limited number of bodies to do that with, yeah, they're gonna compete with each other. That's interesting. And it's just something that hadn't occurred to me. Because I think we just tend to assume, like, oh, these various things from the same planet, and like, but they'll all kind of work in conjunction, if not literally coordinating. They're like, it's all simpatico. No. I mean, like, you look at the species on our own planet, they're constantly competing with each other for freaking everything. So yeah, that was a nice touch too. That was a neat little wrinkle. And as a character exploration of Marorrow, I think that while, part of me kind of dismisses this as this is throwing a bone to the people who wanted something a bit more like the movies, and like, yeah, maybe it kind of is, but it is doing that while giving us a lot more insight into an already interesting character and deepening what had up to now been basically just a villain. And I still view him that way, but he's way more interesting now. He's way less just the unstoppable badass. And I already liked him for that, because he's real good at selling that. But now there's just more to it. And I appreciate it. This show's so good. It's so good. I'm just so glad I can get reviews of stuff that's good in between the stuff that's driving me up the wall these days. Alien Earth, episode 5. Have you seen it? What do you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills. Enables me to do this as my living, even if you can't help me out that way. Like, share, subscribe. Those will help. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so just come on back next time you need a break. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Jared Boyce, Zubin Lutfullah, Auntie Kate 808, Mira G, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Movie Turtle, Oliver B, Sean Miller, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Melissa Pedersen, Mary Mello, Becky Sparks, Loki Eris, Tracy Scrabbit, Pal Barabajoggle, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. Don't worry, the rats are all fine, but my rat wrangler is not here right now, and I thought we could have Archie say hi. Or not.